let's talk about 5 tips on better practicing. Number 1, keep a log of your practicing. I used to do this religiously. I have found old journals. I might have to scan them and share them on my Instagram at some point, just so you guys can all see the madness that was these journals. But I would literally take what time I started, I'd write that down. I'd write what I worked on, specifically, like alternate picking this for, at whatever BPM, and I'd write the range of BPM if I improved on the BPM. Then I'd write down like ear training, and I'd write down specifically what I worked on for ear training. Then I would even write when I took breaks. So if I needed to go eat or something, I'd write that I took a break for 20 minutes or I took a break for 10 minutes or whatever. And then at the end, I would write what time I stopped. And then I would write the total of how much time that I spent. Kind of meticulous. Also, I would sometimes actually plan that out beforehand. I would write down what I was going to do and have about a set time I was going to do it. I just wouldn't plan when I needed to take my breaks. Unless I was doing a long practice, like 4, 5, 6 hours, I'd take a break every usually about 2 hours just to keep the hands safe. What this can really help with is seeing how much you're actually practicing. If you're really religiously taking a log of all your time and you can see, okay, Wednesday I did 2 hours, Thursday I did 3 hours, Saturday I did 6 hours, or maybe you find out that Tuesday you did 15 minutes, Wednesday you did 20 minutes, Thursday you did 10 minutes. It's not that that's a horrible thing, but you might discover, oh, I'm not getting better at the rate I wanted because I'm only putting in 10, 20 minutes a day, or I'm only putting in 30 minutes a day. And you can progress with those times, especially if you're making use of your time. But that's going to generally be a lot less progress than if you were playing an hour a day, or 2 hours a day, or even more than that. So keeping a log will really help, and it will actually track what you're working on. You can look back and see, okay, I had a really great practice on Tuesday. Why was that? What did I work on? What did I start with? Did I warm up in a different way? Because maybe Thursday's practice, my hands just weren't doing what I wanted them to. So maybe I need to look at what I did Tuesday when my hands were doing great, and I need to figure out how to mimic that. And keep in mind, you will just have off days too, but having 3 or 4 off days in a week isn't really common. I'm talking about, you might have an off day once every other week, once a month, maybe once a week, depending on your hands, depending on your age and your skill level. You might just have different days that don't feel as good, but you can at least look back and try to figure out how could you warm up differently. Personally, I love warming up with classical guitar. I don't do it every time, but it really warms up my hands, and I'll notice I have a great practice. I have other things I can do to warm up really well too, but classical just kind of gets all the muscles working, all the tendons loosened up, and seems to really work well. And I noticed that over time, and so when I really have to do a long practice, I usually warm up even just for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes with a couple classical pieces, and go from there, even just moving directly onto electric guitar. So keep a log. It'll help. Number 2, I've said this in other videos before, but this will really help with your practice progress and bettering your practice, is record yourself. Recording yourself allows you to look back at those old videos and actually see how much progress you're making. It also allows you to hear whether or not you sound like you think you sound. When you're playing, your brain, or you can think of it as like your CPU power, a certain amount of that is going to the actual physical act of playing. Even if I'm just sitting there noodling, doing some sweep picking thing or some chord progression or whatever that I've done a million times before, and I really don't have to think about it. I can hold a conversation while I do a lot of that stuff. So it's very muscle memory. But there's still a certain percentage of my brain power going to actually performing that. It has to communicate with my hands to tell them what to do. So if I record myself doing it and then I watch the video or I listen to the recording off of a laptop or any other source, that will actually allow me to hear, did I sound like I really thought I sounded? Like when I have 100% of my attention as a listener to this guitar player, who happens to be me in this video, I have to look at it and go, do I sound like I really think I sounded? So recording yourself, massively, massively helpful. Plus, as I think I mentioned it in my motivational video, or tips for motivation, check that one out if you haven't seen it before. I mentioned that you can also look back from like a recording 2 or 3 or 4 months ago and watch a video now of you playing and actually see an amount of progress that you've made rather than that tiny little incremental progress that we make every day. So it's just a bonus to that. Number 3, manage your time. Don't play one thing for an hour. Play different things. Do 15 minutes of alternate picking. Do 30 minutes of a song and then another 15 minutes of chord study in ear training or something like that. Divide up your time. Managing your time can really help you get to several different things that you want to achieve, goals you want to achieve, skills that you want to develop. Playing the same thing for an hour a lot of the time leads to a plateau. Everybody's plateau will differ as far as how much time it's going to take until you plateau, and it depends on the exercise, depends on your skill level, depends on several different factors. But what will happen a lot of the time is you'll start your practice, you're going to be progressing on this picking exercise. Then what's going to happen is you're going to get better, faster, and then at a certain point you're going to have a hard time pushing past that particular spot. And you can't brute force your technique. You have to develop it. You have to develop what's comfortable and how to get faster in a relaxed fashion. If you do something for a certain amount of time, like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then as soon as you feel like you're really not pushing any faster, you catch that and you move on to a new thing. You work on a different skill. That gives your hands time to rest, and it has a beneficial effect on muscle memory. So your brain can communicate with your hands, and then you might even come back to that thing. You might take a 20-minute break to play something else, and then you might come back to that first thing you did for another 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 10 minutes and try to make a little bit more progress at it. But those little breaks can help. So really managing your time, using timers can really help, just kind of watching the clock. I prefer timers. I like to be able to really zone into one thing for even just 10 minutes and really put all my attention to that and not be thinking about the time. Then the timer will ding for me, and that 10 minutes is up. Now I can move on to the next thing, and I know that I put as much attention into that one item as I could for that 10 or 15 minutes. Another benefit of managing your time will come with recording and writing songs and managing band rehearsal time, making sure that you guys don't spend your entire band rehearsal on one song or spend it just joking around and kind of half playing one song. Come up with an agenda for your practice. What are you going to work on? What are you going to try to accomplish? Number 4, be honest with your progress. Really take a look in the mirror and go, have I progressed as much as I want to? If the answer is no, that's okay. And to be honest, the answer is usually no for most of us. Most of us want to really make a huge leap in progress. And even if we did make that huge leap, we still want to keep going. So the answer is almost always going to be no, funny enough. But you have to be honest with yourself of, have I made a good amount of progress? Has it met a standard of quality and a standard of elevation and skill that I can be happy with? If the answer is no to that question, it's okay. Evaluate. How much more time do you need to spend? How much more time can you spend? How could you better spend your time while practicing? Are you managing your time? Are you recording yourself? Are you switching things up while you practice? Maybe you need to seek private lessons to help better your progress. I ran into this situation, 6.5 years into playing or so. I had been teaching guitar for a couple of years, and I was just about at the point where I could actually leave my job at Safeway and move into just teaching full-time. And I did that about 2 months after I started taking lessons. What I ran into was I wanted to have someone who knew more than me, someone who maybe had been teaching longer, and someone who had more skill than me to help me figure out where to go next. Where are the holes in my playing? How do I better the things that I already think I'm kind of good at? How do I get better at those? What am I missing in those? What are my weaknesses? How do I move forward? And a good private instructor will really help you with this. And they will look at your specific goals. This is what I do for my students. So if you have any interest with studying with me, great, I'd be happy to help you. And what I do and what other teachers that I know do is we're going to evaluate your skill. We're going to evaluate where you are. We're going to look for holes in your playing and what we need to fill, what information you're lacking and what we need to give you in that regard, and then how are we going to move you forward. Maybe that is what's going to help you go to the next level. Maybe it's just more studying on your own. Maybe you're perfectly comfortable studying on your own. You don't want to do the private lesson thing. That's perfectly fine as well. But be honest with your progress and evaluate ways that you could move forward past what you've been doing based on the history of what you've already done. Number 5, work on your weaknesses. Evaluate your weaknesses. Ask yourself, what are you bad at? What do you need to get better at? Not only what do you need to get better at, but what do you want to get better at? For myself, I needed to get a foundation as a guitar instructor to be able to teach any style. So I needed at least a foundation in each and then to build from there. And then as a personal player, I had many other interests on top of that as well to get further and further along. And then as I learned these other genres and I learned these foundations, it also gave me an appreciation and it made me want to move forward in those genres as well. So it can also lead you to more things when you start working on your weaknesses. But really ask yourself, what skills do you want to get good at? What do you want to spend your time on? How much time do you have to spend it? Make sure to keep up on your strengths and continue to push on your strengths. But don't forget to spend some time on those things that you're not good at. Don't avoid them, because then what's going to happen, you're going to run into a scenario where maybe you needed that skill and you can't fake it most of the time. Maybe you're trying to get into a band that you really like and you haven't trained your ears at all, and they don't give you tabs and they don't give you videos on how to play their stuff, and they just go, yeah, here's the recording, like learn what you can, and then you can't learn any of it. Or you can learn like a riff or something like that, but your ears have not been trained at all, so you might not get into that band now, and that might suck for you. We're all going to have these moments. We're all going to have these moments of like, oh crap, I really got to work that skill, and it will really push us to work on that. But in the meantime, before you have those moments, try to think and evaluate for yourself. What do you need to work on? What do you want to work on? What do you want to develop? What would you like to be able to do? Once you can answer those questions, now go spend some time working on those particular goals. Alright guys, hope this video was helpful. Please let me know other tips and topics that you would like me to talk about. And in future videos, I will do my best to try to get to them. Feel free to send me a DM, but also leave the stuff in the comments below. And also feel free to shoot me an email if you're interested in private guitar lessons. I do them all via Zoom. Alright guys, see you later.